Hey, Chris Liepe here. Peter Steele, typo negative, black number 1, live at Dynamo Fest 1995. I've heard this song a bunch of times, but I've not seen this particular video. Peter Steele, fantastic vocalist, lots of different tonalities, different characters that come out in his voice. I remember, when this song first came out, hearing the low, creepy voice, especially the way the studio version is produced, where they really bring out that full spectrum, low sound that he got. Wow. He's one of my favorite vocalists from the 90s. Surprised I haven't done a video on him yet. If you'd like more help bringing out different characteristics in your own voice, bringing out those rich lows or piercing mixed voice highs, just add more variety to your voice. The best way to get started with me as your vocal coach is by clicking the link below and joining my free voice course. There's lots of ways we can work from there. That's the best place to start. Okay, let's go.
Everybody sing! She's in love with herself. She likes the dark. And on her milk white neck, the devil's mark.
All right, so let's talk about vocal posture real quick. At least at the beginning here. Devil's mark. Vanilla Chris Liepe way of initially singing it. Devil's mark. Devils. If I'm going to sort of become a caricature of what he's doing, exaggerate what I hear him doing, that'll help me place things, and then I can dial it back from there. This is definitely a lower larynx position. Devils. But it is not swallowed. That's why he still gets that nice presence out of his voice, even though we tend to swallow sometimes when we lower our larynx. Devil's mark. That's not what this is. Devils. Hear the presence coming out of my voice, even though my larynx is low. Devil's mark. Devil's mark. Yeah, I'm exaggerating it a little bit, but that's the point. The really what I want to communicate here is that we are not swallowing. He is not swallowing. This is a very present, forwardly placed sound, even though he's got a very low larynx. Devils, there's also quite a bit of compression that he's using. We're going to hear more compression, I'm sure. More implementations of it in a little bit. No. Yeah. I like those. No. Hard for me to hit that note, especially today. No. La, la, la. He really hits those lower notes. I love it. Oh, yeah. So, awesome. I want to talk about the entrance and the exit here in particular. This is a mixed voice note. Ah! Let's get there clean first. This is not, it's not a reached for. This is very much lots of compression, and we are going to invoke, as I've talked about in other videos, the good old dying cat to help us get there. Row, 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 row. And we have to play with our resonance and our vowels like I've talked about in lots of other places. And then we add compression. And then we create a little bit of a teetery feeling around our vocal break. We feel out where that might exist in the context of that note, and it gets us even more grit. So we don't have to keep pushing to get the grit. We have this entrance though. She will! And then he goes up. Listen to what he does again. She will! He goes up to that note, and then he changes it to an ow, ow, and then he creates this neat guttural thing at the end of it. Ow! That's exaggerated, but it's really neat to hear him follow that down, even after he slightly thins that higher note. It creates extra context and extra grit, extra aggression out of that whole line. Really, really great sound. It's important to note his open vowel there. This is not will. It's will. And notice I thinned it out a little bit for that top note. And then as I go back down through my resonances, I add more compression as I go lower. So it's almost this inverse thing. A lot of times we add more compression when we're trying to get higher and louder. He's adding more compression, more false chord engagement as he goes down. Really cool. Now I want to comment on his tone again. That's that low, even though he's singing higher, we've got this low larynx open sound. La 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 la, not la la la. That scream that he did though was not she will. It was definitely not that. It was not that. He changed his vocal timbre, his positioning, his larynx raised quite a bit. You can hear that in that scream versus what his normal voice is, but I hesitate to use that word normal. He is being very intentional about how he gets his tone. Great tone, I've said this over and over again. The reason he's got great tone is because it's dynamic and intentional. It's not just that he sounds just one way. He sounds lots of different ways, and we think about that as being Peter Steele's great tone. Well, that's a really important thing to hone in on. Notice how he opens up when he goes into that scream. He's changing his resonance. He's changing his placement. It's a completely different character there. Whoa! No. Whoa! You can see it in his mouth too. Whoa! That is so much more interesting. I like the doubling. I like the live aspect of this here and hearing the contrast in the vocal tone and the pitch being off. And There's almost a little bit of Elvis in there. Not that I'm trying to do an Elvis interpretation, but I think if we want to get in the Peter Steele mood from a speech level, it might be kind of nice to imitate a fake news announcer, especially if we don't have naturally as rich of a voice. Now, you might think I'm being insulting, but I'm not. If we can experiment on a speech level with lowering our larynx and still keeping our speech and our vowel formation forward, this is going to help us get this tone. If we start singing like this, it can actually be somewhat pretty. If we surround it with other techniques and are mindful of how we are placing dynamically, because I can bring it around. Remember, good tone is dynamic tone and not static tone. The key is to be able to have these starting points and then move it around a little bit in the context of a melody. And you can explore some really neat things. He's great at this. Oh. It's difficult to hear in this particular mix what's going on with the guitarist vocals, so I'm not going to say a whole lot about them here. I'm going to do a note, and then I'm going to get out of it, like this. That's a very Steelish thing to do. If we were to genericize the phrase a bit, say the phrase, I love. I love. I love. Notice how I'm going down in pitch, but I'm not going to another pitch? That's different than the typical, let down sigh that I've talked about that Cornell does, where he might go, I love. And it says that sigh afterward, I love. Like that. This is more, I love. And if you combine it with that sort of, I love. We're not building up sort of excess pressure and then releasing into it. We're following our note. We're following the end of our phrases downward while keeping airflow consistent. Loving you. Hear those little cracks? This is in direct contrast to what he was just doing, where he was following a note down and leaving airflow constant. Here, he's releasing very subtly into his head voice. Loving you. Loving you. Loving you, loving you, like I'm dead. Kind of mumbles into it. He doesn't do that at the end. But right there, the loving you, loving you. I'm exaggerating a little bit. But that's a really neat way to work, right? It adds variety, it adds a nice character to it. Again, this guy's a master of going in and out of different characters within one song. Love, love, loving you, loving you. Like Rot! It's interesting because the two different vocals, it's like loving the dead. We've got that lower larynx placed sort of creepy sound. And then the other guy is much more sort of normal. Loving the dead. Definitely more of a mid-range sort of tone. And then that neat, very short, right, scream. Just an abandon into pure false chord engagement. Really, really neat. I've talked a lot about that on other videos. Be sure you check out my other videos if you haven't on how to scream, how to sing aggressively without destroying your voice. Yeah. What an incredibly awesome heavy riff. And notice on that particular aggressive thing there too, he got away from his normal surly sound. Just like he did on the last scream. The snare drum it stands out as just being so incredibly perfectly cracky for this riff. Sorry. Yoo-hoo. Loving the dead. Good old chorus bass too. Ooh, that was an interesting noise. I like picking out the speech level stuff. There he was a lot longer. Ooh, it almost sounded like a not quite that. There was that low sound in there, but he was able to break up, which is a lot harder to do. Let's get there. As opposed to, yeah! Oh! And as you're dialing this stuff in, if you're afraid to crack and make a fool out of yourself, you'll never be any good at screaming. You have to be able to abandon into these fringe areas of your voice to really discover how this stuff works. So as I'm sitting here letting my voice crack and doing silly things with it, let that be less annoying and more inspiring for you. Oh, there's that cool. Yeah. I want to talk over that. Hold on. that was cool because he had this, oh yeah! Oh yeah! Wow! Showing that you're not really changing pitch of the scream, but you're changing the timbre so much by what you do with your mouth. Wow! Wow! You hear it there when I'm doing normal speech pitch sorts of things. But when we have a false chord engaged sort of sound, the position of the mouth and tongue seems to make even more difference on the timbre than simply speaking. So neat to experiment with. A great performance of a great song from a great singer and band. Hope you enjoyed going through Peter Steele's vocals, exploring his many different characters within one song, and sometimes within a particular phrase. He's very inspiring in this way, and fun to listen to also. Again, if you'd like more help with your own voice, working out some of this stuff in your own singing, click that link below and join my free course. We'll see you for more.